Good to see everybody here today. Thank you for coming. I'm going to ask Supervisor Mike Carter if he will do our invocation, and Supervisor Ronnie Mitchell if he will say the pledge to the flags.
Good to see everybody today. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. We ask for your guidance in all the work we do here today. We ask that you be with those that are ill and in the hospital at this time. And please keep moving our country forward in the right direction. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to ask for the approval to the agenda. Is there any members have any additions, amendments, or deletions
I do, Mr. Chairman.
to that agenda? Yes, sir. Mr.
I do. Mr. Chairman,
Sorry. Come on, Madeline, where are you at? Mr. Chairman, I previously had requested time for the students who attend the Drew Center to address the board at a meeting. This item was on the agenda for today. However, the group is unable to present. Therefore, I'm requesting this item be removed from today's agenda.
Thank you. Is there any more? So we don't need to vote on that then? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments today? Anyone signed up?
I'll double check with the sheriff's office. As of now, nobody signed up.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one item. I know it's not under public comment today, but I do have an introduction.
Yes, sir. That'd be good.
If I would ask Carly Foster maybe to come forward to the podium. I'm putting her on the spot. Carly is a resident currently in Franklin County and is a graduate student at James Madison University, where she's pursuing a degree in public administration, master's degree. Carly grew up in Franklin County to around the age of 5, I believe, and then her family has resided in Henry County. Carly's a graduate of Virginia Tech, and she is interning with the county this summer and working in our office. And of course, I'll also comment that Madeline Sefcek has worked very hard on our internship program, and we are very pleased that Carly is able to join our staff this summer and work in our office on a host of different projects. So, Carly, I'm putting you on the spot, but I'll let you say a few words to the board.
Yeah, I'm just really thankful for the opportunity and excited for all we get to do this summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you. Thank you, Carly. I talked to her earlier. You get a chance to meet with her. She's colorful. Good. She's a nice lady. All right, on our consent agenda, on number five. Number 5 on the split precincts. The county attorney is going to read the resolution that's hot off the press just in the last few minutes. You should have that copy lined before you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution authorizing the Franklin County Director of Elections and General Registrar to submit a request for a waiver from the State Board of Elections pursuant to Section 24.2-307 of the Code of Virginia to administer the split precincts for any election held in 2021. Whereas Virginia Code Section 24.2-307, as amended, authorizes the governing body of each county and city to establish by ordinance as many election precincts as it deems necessary, and whereas Virginia Code Section 24.2-307 mandates that each election precinct shall be wholly contained within a single congressional district, Senate district, House of Delegates district, and election district used for the election of one or more members of the governing body or school board of the county or city. And whereas Franklin County has 13 split precincts, Glade Hill, Pinhook, Hodgesville, Dudley, Henry, Wadesboro, Boones Mill, Town of Boones Mill, Rocky Mount East in the town, Rocky Mount West, and Rocky Mount West in the town, and Rocky Mount South, altogether the split precincts. And whereas the Virginia Code requires that the Board of Supervisors establish precinct boundaries by June 15, 2021, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has delayed the 2020 census and Franklin County has not received census data, and whereas without updated census data, Franklin County is unable to establish precinct boundaries that eliminate the split precincts by June 15, 2021, and whereas the Virginia Code requires the board to apply for a waiver from the State Board of Elections to continue to administer the split precincts for any election held in 2021, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Franklin County, Virginia, does hereby authorize the Franklin County Director of Elections and General Registrar to submit a request for a waiver from the State Board of Elections pursuant to Section 24.2-307 of the Code of Virginia to administer the aforementioned split precincts for any election held in 2021.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other business in regards to the consent agenda? Does this resolution, since it's new, raise any questions or concerns that we need to address in any of you's mind? All right, with that being said, need to have we can do a vote on this and we'll do it consent. All in favor of adopting or considering the consent agenda by yay?
Yay.
Yay.
Chairman, we'll just need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion, we approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor by motion of yay?
Yay.
Yay.
Nay? Anybody? Passed. Just for record, I should have done this to begin with, and it slipped my mind. Ms. Smith's not here today because of illness in her family, and Mr. Cundy's out of town. Mr. Cundy is going to come in later, I think, on the phone. Madam Clerk will take care of that. Okay, Mr. Daniels. Good to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to be with you. Got a brief report this month, and matter of record, we'll be back tonight for the 6 p.m. public hearing for the secondary 6-year plan as well. So in the report you should have in front of you on page 1, I'm going to hit the highlights. We've got 3 structures that have been recently rehabbed in different fashions, but Route 759 Rufus Road was a low water structure that we replaced. Route 764 Carver Lee and Route 641 Callaway both had existing bridges that we removed the deck and put a concrete slab on, which basically removes the weight restriction that we had on those bridges. So that's a substantial improvement. We also have completed one of the 2 failing pipe repairs on Route 647 K Fork Road. We are now working on the second. And that takes me into activities for the next 60 days. One of those is the pipe we're working on K Fork Road. Primary mowing and secondary mowing, many of you have probably seen that as you ride around the county. We've started that, and that will continue through the summer. We recently did a little more patching on 122 in the Scruggs area, the Westlake area, trying to get all that wrapped up before the summer season starts. And we are basically complete. Maybe a little work left to do, but very little. Route 736 Madcap is still on the maintenance activity for the next 60 days. We actually got that complete, and it's open. I'm not sure if we've got our surface on it yet. On to page 2, Route 691 Bondbrook. Your report says work will begin May 17, which we are post that, and we actually did start work on that yesterday, so that's underway and going well initially. Moving on to page 3, We're actually continuing to move forward in our Grassy Hill New Plant Road intersection site distance work. Right now, Appalachian Power is scheduling their time to come secure the pole, and we anticipate that somewhere in June that we'll be working on that.
Awesome, thank you.
Skipping down to a completed study, we recently got the results back on Route 718 Crooked Oak from our Salem District Traffic Engineer. They did not recommend changing the speed limit at this time, so we won't be posting a different speed limit. Project status, a big deal for us, a really, really big deal. 122 at Hardy Road Roundabout. It is under construction. Some surveying going on, some utility relocation is ongoing. So there's, the real dirt moving hadn't quite started. It isn't visible, but it is under construction and moving forward. And Mr. Chairman, that is my report for the month.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions or Mr. Smith?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. Hopkins Road in Carolina Springs, Brian came out and met with me. Have you guys talked about that anymore?
Mr. Mitchell, our traffic engineer actually visited the site. We haven't got feedback from him yet, but we're working on a solution. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but I can tell you that many times we will take, when you've got a wide intersection like that and you've got the concrete island that's got the stop sign in it, that was a method of posting a stop sign many, many years ago. And for varied reasons, you saw it across a lot of the counties. We've taken a lot of those out, and what it allows us to do is straighten up the intersection, get the traffic lined up better. One of our problems is being able to see that stop sign as you approach it, because some of those intersections will curve around.
Yep.
Just to give you a little perspective. We'll look at all of that. We may wind up doing some pavement marking to guide the traffic, but what it does, it still allows a larger truck to the trailer to cheat over on, to track over.
Yeah.
We don't have a solution yet, but the traffic engineer has looked at it.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be great if, even though the semi-trucks are the risk there, it'd be nice if we could make it easier for them to make the turn, but.
Yeah, and of course, if we did that, we would add a center line up to, typically what we do is we'll place a center line up to and place a stop bar, so if you're turning into the intersection, you can clearly see where you're supposed to be.
Okay.
But we also have enough pavement for you to make that turn safely in a truck.
That's great.
So still work to be done, but yes, working on it.
Yeah, really appreciate New Plant Road too. I appreciate the progress on that. That's great. Good news.
Any more questions, comments? We're at a place here now, we pulled this
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Giroux Center. Thank you, sir. We pulled the Giroux Center. Want to take about a 5-minute break here to regroup and get a couple things together, and then we'll start back pretty quickly.
Start calling me Tommy.
All right, what's next? Mr. Carter. Where you is? Am. Here you am. We're gonna have to get you a hat. I was told we was gonna have to get you a hat. They said they couldn't see nothing when you was up there.
You go have to, mind the reflection, please. There.
I'm not gonna tell you who said that.
I have a couple of guesses.
His initials is Jim Gwynn.
I don't believe that's the case. So
Well-
much for confidential communication.
Jim, I've had a whole lot worse said about me, so, yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. So our monthly finance report will be numbers through April 30th, 10 months through the fiscal year, about 83% of our budget. Looking down the row, we don't see any concerns on revenues at this point. They're all within acceptable ranges. The revenue from use of money and property is the interest income. That is the biggest one that is below budget, and that is continuing. We have adjusted that for the 22 budget that the board did recently adopt, but we are Going to take that hit the rest of this year. Interest rates are just near non-existent to earn on our money. We are seeing increase in other revenues to offset. So on the expenditure side, we are within realm of the 83% on every category. No concerns there. We're where we should be this time of year based on the budget. To graphically show you that, to look at the revenues, the red line is the current year line. Basically, we're on par with where we would expect to be. We're a little below for April, but we were a little above in March, so everything. As far as to break that a little further into categories, so our general property taxes are the most significant increase. That is mostly driven by our real estate. Not a lot of change from when we reviewed it last month. It's a little over, it's almost a $3 million increase over the prior year. Other local taxes, mostly driven by sales tax, is up as well, about $1.2 million. Revenue from the Commonwealth, our state revenue is down about $500,000. A lot of that is timing, not really a concern there compared to April. So for real estate, we are still seeing around it's actually 6.2% increase over last year, almost $2.5 million. It is 101% of the budget, so conservatively, we are ahead of where we thought we would be this time of year.
Is that about the same as last month, that 1%, the same 1% you're talking about?
It is. It hasn't changed a lot since last month.
Which is about $1 million.
It's, no, I would have to look, I would say around $300,000-400,000
Okay.
over budget, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So looking at our personal property, we actually seeing a little bit better growth since last month. It's at 1.4%, about $167,000. 110% of budget. We are seeing the effects of the tax rate reduction. We normally like to see 3 or 4%. I think if you factored that out, we're pretty normal growth of 3 or 4% on personal property. It's just that impact is dropping our growth rate. Local sales tax is continuing to see an increase. It is $753,000 over the prior year, year-to-date through April. It's about 16.7%. We're seeing something similar at the state level. The state is about 8.7% as of the last update on a year-to-date, so we're almost double what we're seeing on the state level, which is a good sign.
Brian, what
Yes,
what are they attributing that to? Do you know?
Couple of things that seem to be a lot of it is internet sales. They seem to be pointing that out, and some of it is actually inflation. The cost of things are higher at this point in time this year.
Thank you.
Sir.
Inflation is real right.
Meals tax, for the first time all fiscal year, actually has an increase over the prior year, which we're glad to see. It's been trailing behind all year, and so finally we had a great April, which would have been for March sales, March meals, taxes collected, and so that you can see the red line there, how much higher that is compared to the prior couple of years, and so that put us over 1.3%. $13,000, not a large sum of money, but considering where we've had to go with meals tax and the restrictions that have been in place on our small businesses and our restaurants, it's good to see. Transient occupancy is continuing its high growth. Same thing, we saw that a large uptick, that orange line there for April, which would be March activity. I think you're probably seeing, we had some warmer weather, people probably just ready to get out. So they're eating out, they're going, they're staying. You're seeing that uptick. So it's about 60% increase, $72,000, not a large percent of the budget, but it is indicative of what you're seeing. Sales, meals, and occupancy are all starting to tick up a little bit. So that's all for revenues. On the expenditures, graphically showing that we're about in line with where we thought we would be. February and March were down compared to the prior year. April saw an uptick in expenditures, but some of that is just the timing of how it hits the ledger. Overall, we're in line with where we would expect to be compared to the budget and compared to last year when you factor out the CARES Act money, the excess. So to show you by category, you can see we're in line with most. The public safety function, again, is mostly CARES Act money driving that increase. Over $7 million was spent so far this fiscal year. To break down health and welfare so we can focus a little more. You see an up and down in social services, the operating side and then the program side. One is up, one is down. The CSA is up a little bit through April. Looking at that and based on where the numbers are, we still actually think we'll be below last year, unless we have a really poor month and a half. I say poor. We have a large amount of services approved that are unplanned at this point. So hopefully that a lot of that is timing with what we expect. We're not seeing a great concern in the CSA program at this point. We are going to be cautious, especially in the next fiscal year as schools do open more regularly. As kids get back into the classroom, you may see an uptick in services that are needed as teachers and staff are able to kind of see the needs. This slide hasn't really changed since last month. The fund balance, we're still at about a remaining of $2.9 million based on what we've obligated to this point. I did want to update you a little more on the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA funds. So we did on May 10th receive initial guidance. I will say I have not diligently read every word of the 150-page document that the federal government sent. But I will tell you that a lot of good people are doing that for me, and so the guidance that we have hasn't really changed a lot. It's a lot of the same guidance from the CARES Act. They have broadened it a little bit as to what we could use. We do still plan to receive $10.9 million rounded. That was actually part of the release. Before it was estimates from other local governments, other government like NACO or National Association of Counties, things of that nature. They weren't official Treasury, U.S. Treasury numbers, so they did release those with the guidance on May 10th. The allowable uses really are what we thought they would be. There's a lot more detail. Don't want to bore you with that. Staff's just going through that, kind of reviewing still and waiting really on the other pots of money to come through. But it is to respond to the public health emergency. There are economic impacts for households, small businesses, nonprofits, things of that nature. Respond to workers performing essential work, provide government services to the extent of reduction in revenue. That one is interesting. They came up with a whole formula for how we calculate that. Realistically, as you can see with our monthly, there really isn't a drop in revenue, so it's not an area where I would say we would want to go to use our ARPA money. And to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. They did have a few more clarifications from the last time of what the funds may not be used for. May not be used deposit into pension funds, but also rainy day funds or financial reserves. And they cannot be used to fund debt service, legal settlements, or judgments. So I think part of if we were to choose to do a capital project, we would have to fund the capital project, not fund the debt service for the capital project. That's the clarification that was part of the guidance. So staff did submit the request for our distribution on May 11th. We have still not heard or received those funds as of today. The initial guidance was to split that into two payments. I have not seen anything yet that says otherwise, so we probably will receive $5.5 million around with this first distribution, and the other, I believe, was supposed to be 12 months later. If they change that, we'll be sure and let you know, just waiting for that to come in. They did clarify a little bit on the timing, which was helpful. So on this, in this round of stimulus, we still have to obligate the money by December 31st, 2024. So that gives us almost 5 years to obligate it. But we actually have another 2 years to actually spend it. So if we were to enter into a contract for a project, I'll use broadband as an example, but we could use anything that we find to be eligible. You have until December 31st, 2026 to actually complete the construction and pay all the bills. So that's very helpful, knowing that a lot of money is getting ready to be injected into the economy and a lot of contractors are going to be covered up. Yes, sir.
Brian, you all, I assume, are putting together a laundry list of possible expenditures for this money for the board to look at once it gets in our hands so we can make some choices moving forward.
Yes, sir. That'll be a similar thing like we did with CARES.
Yeah.
Part of what we're waiting on is the rest of, well, one, the pots of money to be distributed, but also for the state level to decide what they're doing with their money, because that, we don't want to overlap funds. So if we can utilize our funds better and utilize state funds to the maximum extent, we want to wait on that.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter, this money also, the school's going to get a pot of this as well, so.
That's correct.
This 10.9 million can be exclusively for the county, correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. The schools are getting about 6.5 million in what I call SRSA money. That was actually part of their budget presentation. The board adopted that. They're also getting an estimated $19 million out of this, I think it's ESSER funds, but so they have both pots of money directly to the school system. Two things, and that made me think of something else, that the 10.9 million is strictly county money, and this round does not include money that we are required to distribute to the towns. The CARES money the county became kind of the keeper of the funds for our towns within our limits. They're getting their money separate from the state, so this 10.9 million is 100% county money.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does that raise any more questions?
I do, but I'll just wait till he's done though.
All right, thank you.
So to answer a little bit longer on Mr. Carter's question, the General Assembly, and it looks like the governor's not going to call a special session till the end of July or beginning of August to really determine how they're going to spend the state allotment. So at this point, we're almost in a holding pattern. Still have the bullet there that patience is key. We have 5-7 years really to get all of this done. So we'd really like to wait and see what the state is going to do with their pot of money and how we may be able to leverage those funds. And a lot of our Virginia Association of Counties, our organizations along that, our Government Finance Officers Association, they're all kind of recommending that pause while all of this money gets injected into the economy and all of the governing bodies kind of work out their programs. And with that, that's it.
Is there any questions in regards to this money he was just talking about?
Yes, sir.
Mitchell?
Did you have something first, Mr. Chairman? Did you have something first? You want me to go?
I've got a question. You go ahead.
Last meeting, I shared what my wishes were as far as, I see broadband as something to be used for.
Yes.
Have we started the conversation with our local internet providers on what all we can do, what money they're willing to bring to the table to try to reach as many citizens as we can? If we got this money coming, we decide we're going to spend it, which I would hope and encourage, we will spend a good chunk of it for internet.
Sure.
Have we started that conversation with them? I mentioned it last meeting.
I think we have ongoing conversations with them. I don't know that we've had ARPA funding specific, Ms. Williams.
Yeah. Mr. Mitchell, great question. And at your upcoming Broadband Authority meeting on June the 14th, we'll get into some more detail with this, but we are having some conversation not only with our existing broadband providers, but also an opportunity that we recently became aware of with a potential another broadband provider. And so they're bringing to the table information more and more regarding these ARPA funds. And in addition to the county's allocation, there's a significant amount of dollars coming from the state of Virginia, Commonwealth. And as Mr. Carter pointed out, that's shaking out in Richmond, how that's going to be distributed to the counties, whether that's additional several $1 million for the VODI program or either another initiative. But to your point, we are having those conversations significantly, and not just from the wireless provider that we currently have, but also true fiber to the home, ongoing discussions. And we're excited we can bring some information back to the Broadband Authority. And I'm looking at the Broadband Authority Chairman, Mr. Mitchell. Certainly, I think June 14th we'll be holding potentially a Broadband Authority meeting to bring more information to the Broadband Authority.
Yes. And,
And Matt, just finish real quick. As I get out and about talking to developers, builders, new homeowners in this county, a lot of the new homeowners are picking places where they're getting good internet. And if we're really trying to, and even retaining some of our citizens, which is a big focus of my committee, I think internet infrastructure is going to be absolute critical discussion on this money. So I really look forward to it, and I hope we can use it for some of that, because it have a lot to do with people moving to our county. So that's all I had. I just wanted to make sure I keep, you know how me, I like to keep poking at you to make sure I get my wishes out there. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter, I called in yesterday in regards to the accounts payable list, and I know that Mr. Whitley brought it up to your attention. Could you address on page 17 for the rest of you on the accounts payable payout list? It's in your booklet. There's a non-department, but it's $1 million budget there.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain that, please?
Certainly. There are a couple of smaller items in there. If you'll notice, those are special welfare checks.
Yes, sir.
And those are run by the Department of Social Services. I do not know all of the programs in and outs of that. It is its own separate fund, separately mandated. The treasurer's checks are also in there. That typically is refunds, things of that nature. They run those. That's the smaller amount. Most of the big ticket items are all related to payroll. Our payroll is, for the purposes of this report, is considered non-departmental. And what I mean by that is all of our withholding. That is our federal state tax withholding. That is our VRS retirement withholding for employees that we submit to the appropriate agencies. Our ICMA retirement for hybrid and our deferred compensation plan. Insurances for Anthem, our health insurance, Delta Dental, any voluntary life insurance, those type things. So historically, our payroll runs about $1 million a month. You're going to give or take, but our monthly payroll for county employees is about $1 million a month by the time you factor all of that in. That's going to be, so you see a lot of checks to Carter Bank and Trust. And so because we have to wire those funds, typically we write the check to Carter Bank and then we go to the branch and actually wire them in. And that's the reason why you see a lot of large dollar amounts to them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Carter? Thank you, sir, for your report.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I wanted to do, had a couple of items today. The first is the Smith Farm Nutrient Credit, Nutrient Bank. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. As you know, the county purchased the Smith Farm probably about 10 years ago in 2010. It's a 400-acre parcel of property in the Union Hall District, and that property has a number of will restrictions on it that will not allow the county to do a lot of development. So what we did back in 2016, this board authorized us to move forward in the creation of some credit banking on that property to allow the county to actually use the property for financial benefit for the taxpayers of the county. And we have gotten to the point now where the bank has been approved, and so we're looking to the board for a deed of restriction on this parts of this property so that we can move forward with the nutrient bank. As you'll see here on the screen, this is the actual survey of the nutrient bank itself. The larger parcel, of course, is the entire Smith Farm, and then the cross-hatched areas are the parcels or places where the nutrient bank is being placed on the property. So we'll have about 51 acres or so of the 400-acre or 395-acre Smith Farm that would be under restriction. We could potentially improve or increase the size of that bank or the stream credit bank at a later date, but for right now, this is what we're bringing to the board. To be able to utilize this, the Department of Environmental Quality requires that there is a deed of restriction on the property to say that in perpetuity it will be kept for the nutrient bank to be able to get the credits. This is just one other map I was going to show you really quickly. The orange areas and the blue areas on the survey are what's in part of this bank. So what we would do if the board so chooses to put this 52 or 51 acres of property into the bank, you will qualify for about 52 pounds of nutrient credits. Each credit right now is somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 of value that we are currently having to purchase whenever we do development projects ourselves. So now instead of purchasing these credits on the open market, we can utilize our own bank and save that $10,000 to $15,000 per credit. So at 52 pounds of credits, you'll be looking at somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 worth of value by doing this on the property. You will start out by getting about 13 pounds immediately without having to do anything. You'll then need to plant trees on this 50 acres of property so that you can get another chunk of those credits. And then once they've been planted and alive for 2 seasons, then you're able to get the last bit of the credits. So hopefully it's a good use of the property for us financially, but also the citizens of the county will be able to benefit from that. And the property is still usable for recreational purposes. So be glad to answer any questions the board might have.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I wasn't here in 2016, but I was reading this last night. It might as well have been in a foreign language to me. Can you explain to me, and I apologize because I was late reading the agenda, but so it's like there's certain areas that nothing can be done on, and it's credits that are worth money. I mean, can you just explain just a little bit more so I'm just a little bit more educated on what this is?
So probably the easiest way to explain how the credits work or how credits in general work, you have different types of banks. So you have stream credit banks, you have nutrient banks, and we've looked at both. So initially, some years ago, you had a lot of people that focused in on stream credit banks. So if you do a project, we go out and build a new pad at the Summit View Business Park, and we impact a stream. Every linear foot of stream that you impacted, you had to buy stream credits to make up for that environmental loss. So a lot of projects that we do don't necessarily impact streams. But in the last few years, last couple of years especially, that people have been going, or the environmental laws have been going much more to nutrient credits. So anytime that you build a new impervious area, so let's say we go to Summit View and you build a pad site and there's an asphalt parking lot on it, the environmental laws say that you're introducing more nutrients into the environment. There's now more vehicle emissions that are coming off or less that can seep into the ground, and there's more runoff. And so there's a complex formula that's used that anytime you impact, you do one of these projects that would have a nutrient impact, you have to either purchase credits on the open market or you have to put in bioretention ponds and a lot of other things that are very expensive. And most of the time a combination of the two. And so what we do is, at Summit View, we have, every time we've had to do a project, a road project or whatever else, we've had to go out and buy those credits on the open market. And the price for these had been about $10,000 per credit. It's
Who do
gone
we
up.
buy them from?
There's private banks that do exactly what we're doing, except that they're private and they sell their credits to other areas. So that's kind of how it works. So we buy from, this way we'll buy from ourselves rather than spending the money somewhere else.
Thank you, but I still have no idea what we're doing. Might as well be
Sorry,
talking
I've been
about
immersed in this in a while, so I apologize.
I'll look it up online when I get home tonight.
Jim, if you have any,
Can I get a
any
copy
other
of-
way of describing it.
No. I can't add much to it.
Can I get a copy of the will restrictions? Because I mean, this is a good chunk of land that
Absolutely.
would be a great piece of land to develop to generate real estate taxes for the county. And I'd like to see what the wheel restrictions. I don't know if I'll be comfortable voting on this one today or not, buddy. I really don't. This one just kind of got
Yeah,
snuck up on me.
no problem whatsoever. I think most of the rest of the board was here and have gone through the will restrictions previously, but
Okay.
we'll get you a copy. It was very restrictive on what it would allow, educational, forestry, agricultural, and recreation were the items. So we can't.
We can basically make it a big park, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so really, I mean, if you could take this property and sell it for a new subdivision, I mean, that would be a lot of tax base to the community. Unfortunately, we can't do the will restriction. So
Okay.
that's kind of what this is set up for.
So I might as well vote for it today because there's nothing we can do with it.
It's your vote.
That's what I want you to tell me. Okay. Thank you, lawyer. Yes.
Does that open up any more Mr. Mitchell?
Will these areas be fenced?
No, these are actually going to be planted, and we'll have some markings that show where the outskirts of the actual bank easements are, but no, we won't fence these.
How is that gonna fit in with, the leased land for cattle's running on?
Great question. Yes, so actually the farmer that is on the property now has already fenced the area, fenced an area approved by DEQ that keeps the cattle out of the streams and out of this bank area. So it's already been done and the cows are being moved.
Well, that was one of the things when I read in there, I wanna be sure that no cattle,
Still doesn't make sense.
because you can't grow
A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense.
forestry or,
Broadband.
from experience at my farm, cattle and growing stuff do not mix.
They do not mix.
And I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a great question, Mr. Mitchell, and that was one of the big things that DEQ focused on. We've spent a lot of time getting the farmer to get all that fenced and all the cattle moved, and so we made sure that we were covered.
And Mr. Mitchell,
Sir.
if you can
Yes, sir,
find a
Mr. Mitchell.
pound, if you can find a pound of what nutrients we're selling, I'd love
That's
to
what I was
see
just
it.
talking about. I went to the wrong line of business. There's something I can dig up while I'm working. I can get money for.
Maybe.
All right.
They're very strict
Very strict.
on what property you can use. Because I've got streams running through
I'll
my
YouTube it
patch
tonight.
that I would love selling nutrients off of them, but I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, we've got to take action on this. There on attachment 8, there are some possible motions that need to be made. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the restrictions and for us to be able to sell these nutrients and use the benefits.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Madam Clerk, we need to do a roll call on that, please.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Ronald Mitchell.
Yeah, sure.
Supervisor Tatum.
Yes.
Supervisor Carter.
Yes.
Supervisor Leland Mitchell.
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes.
And Supervisor Smith and Cundiff are both absent for this vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Mike, now you've got the connection road.
Yes, sir. So the next item on the list is exciting. We are moving very close to starting our connector road project. As you know, we talked last month about, or in the last couple of months, about the connector road. We've gotten approval from the US EDA for $4.7 million, revenue sharing of $5.4 million, and smart scale funding of $3.75 million. So you have quite a bit of funding that has come in that should cover our expenses related to the connector road. The next steps for us to move forward with this, we're sending a draft RFP to the EDA and to VDOT for them to review to make sure that we're doing everything right by federal funding standards, which of course are very strict, and that we would also like to ask the board to allow us to go ahead and advertise that RFP whenever it is approved by the feds and the state, so that we can get an engineer recommended back to you all for a contract and we can start design on this project. The quicker that we can do the advertisement and hiring of the engineer, the quicker we'll be able to get that done and get the road under construction. So just here is just a general area. This is the full network of the Summit View roads. As you can see, the A1, A2 area, which is in yellow, and the light blue, which is E, and also F, which is the dark blue. Those are all already in process. E is already completed. A1, A2, and F are the signalizations on 220. Road segment D3, we expect to be able to go out to bid on that in the next week or so. So that'll be under construction. And so what we're really talking about today are what's in here in the purple D1, D2, C, which is the pinkish magenta color, and then G, which is the orange area. And so that's what we'd be looking to have an engineer actually do the design, engineering, and the permitting.
Anybody have any questions?
If my math is correct, it looks like the county in matching dollars is $3,723,000. It's $3,723,834. Where's that money coming from?
It was in the original second borrowing that the county did. We had budgeted funds for the D3 project as well as the signalization project.
Okay. I've mentioned this a couple times before. Have you reached out to kind of get a vibe or a sense from, we're trying to attract industry, big commercial investors into the business park. I've shared with my concerns with the people I'm talking with that are in those industries. Do you have anything to report to me today before I make my decision?
Well, I can give you some anecdotal evidence. We're talking a lot with VEDP, which is the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and we're talking with the Roanoke Regional Partnership as well as some of our local industries. Right now, the issue isn't the need for commercial development to occur. The biggest issue we're having is with workforce. Everybody that we're talking to is just having a really hard time finding employees. That's something I think that hopefully will be a little bit better in the fall, but I think we're still going to be looking at a pretty big shortfall in labor. So what we're really hoping is with some of the efforts that this board has done to try to attract new population to the area, that's going to probably be the biggest thing that helps economic development. But yeah, as far as we're seeing on demand, I'm personally not seeing any real slowdown. Everything I've seen so far has been positive.
I'm very concerned. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of the economy, and I'm very concerned. Do we have to vote? Can we not vote on C separate from D1, D2, and D3? Do we have to vote on all of them together? Because if I read, C is completely funded, correct?
C, D1, and D2 are already funded. Are all funded within this.
No local match from us.
Correct.
But D3 that's where the whole $3 million or part of that's coming from the
That's where
signals.
we've got, if you'll let me hang on just a second, I'll pull that up. And the biggest thing with the D3 segment is because that it has, and this is complicated too. The two ends of the park run on a two-phase signalization, and so they work in concert. So you have to have the whole network all the way through for it to function properly. So if we didn't do D3, if we just did C, D1, and D2, then you really probably wouldn't be any better off than you are today. I guess is the biggest issue. But yeah, so for D3, we have got, yep, we've got about $2 million in that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's budgeted within our funding. And really, all we're asking for today is to advertise for engineering on this, so it wouldn't be something that you'd actually be approving any funding for
I
or
understand that.
contracts for today.
I'm still not comfortable with it, though.
Yep, so what I have down is that for D3, we've got $2,026,300 that we have in county dollars, but we have in county dollars budgeted for that project. And then the two-phase signalization, we have $939,108.77 budgeted at this point. And if you all recall, a couple of months ago, we had you approve some changes in how the VDOT funding might work so that we could, what we already have budgeted ourselves for the D3 road segment, we might be able to take some money off a different project that is a little bit further down the line, put that money on our D3 and use our money in a different project later on this network. Really, VDOT just has a lot of different funding cycles that they go through, and so we're trying to find the right way to get all the road work done as quickly as we can with the same amount of county dollars.
I'm just going to go on public record, let my fellow supervisors know. I was hoping to have something from you that kind of made me feel comfortable moving forward at all on Summit View and spending all these. I understand it's budgeted. We still have to pay it back. I'm not comfortable making a decision on this today to even move forward with just engineers getting estimates and stuff like that, because it's a lot of work that these people have to put into estimating and engineering this.
Yes, sir.
My vote's probably no today. I just want to let my fellow supervisors know that. Nothing against you. I really want to get something from you that makes me feel comfortable spending any money on Summit View, because I'm really concerned. I'm an employer, yes. It is definitely a concern with employees right now.
Yeah.
I'd hire somebody right now if they came up and asked me for a job. All right?
And we're hearing that quite a bit.
Yep.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Some of this, if I'm reading D3 correctly, has a time limit on when we need to start making decisions.
All of this funding is available up to a certain point in time. Each one's a little different, but some of it's not available yet. Some of it will be available in a year. Some of it will be available in a year and a half. It kind of depends on the funding cycle. I'm sorry. Oh, the qualified investment. Yes, sir. Yes, so D3, we do have EDA funding that if we move forward with that, you do have to have a qualifying investment on there. Yes.
You know, that was what I was thinking, that we are dealing with some time.
What is he talking?
I think, oh, go ahead, Mr. Mitchell. I thought you was through.
No, I'm good, thank you.
I think we're at a point that I understand what's being said by Supervisor Mitchell, Ronnie Mitchell, but I think we're at a point that we need to quit procrastinating and get on with the project and get the park open. I know that the problem with getting the help, but I think a whole lot of that is because of what's going on now. It's a whole lot easier to sit at the house and get $600 a week than it is to go, and we've got no control over that. I think we've got to keep things moving in local government. So with everybody's thoughts in there, I need a motion on what you want to do.
Mr. Thompson, Chairman, if I could make a comment, we know Stick Pack is running wide open. And I've had some to come to me complaining the fact of employees trying to get into the road without a signal, that they have a concern. And I agree with you totally. I don't think we're in a position right now to start scrapping or start cutting back on this project. I think I'd like to see us move forward and coin an old phrase, get her done.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify. I want to see this through 100%.
Yes.
That's not what I'm saying, Mr. Mitchell.
Mhm.
I just wanted more information before we even took another step further. And I just don't have that today. So I want to see this through 100%. We got to see it through, but I'm just not comfortable today.
All right. Got a motion? Do you have a sample motion in your, I didn't see it in
Yes,
our,
sir.
it's in our
Should be in
Friday,
there.
right?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve staff advertising for proposals for engineering design services for the Summit View Business Park Connector Road project.
Have a second?
Second.
We don't need to do a roll call on this. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay.
Nay.
Pass.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Whitlow.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a few updates for the board this evening, and of interest, and I see Director of Public Safety Billy Ferguson here with us, and certainly this week the governor and the Commonwealth recognizes May 16th through the 22nd as Emergency Medical Services Week. And so we would just like to pause now and salute all of our career and volunteer fire EMS personnel. Certainly, this last year has been challenging to say the least from the pandemic perspective, but yet all of our volunteers and career staff have persevered through. And so I just want to pause now and publicly thank them. And in doing so, to honor our fire EMS first responders, this week at the public safety offices, we'll be provided prepared plates for spaghetti and some salad, dessert, and beverage for EMS and fire first responders. And I think that begins Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. I can get that information out to the fellow board members. If I'm sure it would be appreciated if you have an opportunity to drop by the offices there to send a word of appreciation to our first responders. Secondly, I'd point out to the board that upcoming on June the 3rd, it's a Thursday, we will be holding our housing summit at the Franklin Center beginning at 10 o'clock, 10 till 2. Tentatively, we're finalizing the agenda as we speak. We'll have some guests with us, including one of our housing consultants to present. A lot of you all have already heard the data from our housing consultants of both the demand and the capacity for more housing and population in Franklin County. So we want to get that out to the development community and the real estate community. Our staff's been working really hard over the last couple of weeks in terms of reaching out, making calls to developers and realtors regarding this upcoming meeting. And so that's June the 3rd at 10 o'clock at the Franklin Center. Upcoming at June 14th will be the board's next work session, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. That's Monday, June the 14th. And I think everyone has been read with interest in the news regarding solar energy in Virginia, where we are seeing increase in applications for solar energy facilities. We have a pending application now in our planning department for a solar energy facility. And so this will be a time for the board and staff to hold a work session to look at our zoning ordinance, both from that standpoint, but also from our county code in terms of our machinery and tools tax and how these solar energy facilities are taxed and revenue from that. Also, there's a revenue sharing agreement, if you will, by the Code of Virginia that's allowed. And so we hope to have some support staff here from the Virginia Association of Counties here with us on June 14th. So that's June 14th at 3:30 at the work session. And I mentioned earlier, looking at our Broadband Authority Chairman, Mr. Leland Mitchell, that we will look to hold a Broadband Authority meeting, I believe, Mr. Mitchell, on that Monday as well at 3 o'clock.
Yes,
And so we, as I mentioned earlier, we will have some information. Mr. Ronnie Mitchell, you had asked about the providers and so forth. So we hope to have additional information for you there regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And then just a couple of other work sessions on the calendar this summer. I know we have it on our meeting date, the third Monday of each month as a holder for our board work sessions, and then the third Tuesday for our regular meetings. And so June the 14th, as I mentioned, our solar energy work session. Monday, July the 19th, we've confirmed with the Western Virginia Water Authority to be with us on that Monday work session with the board to do some utilities planning, to hear from the Water Authority and utilities planning in Franklin County and what that may look like. Monday, August the 16th, Davenport and Associates, our financial advisors, will be here with us. We've confirmed with them to spend some time talking about our large capital projects and updating that from the board perspective. And we'll also talk a lot, hopefully at that meeting, more about the American Rescue Plan Act that Mr. Brian Carter spoke of earlier. We'll know more from the Commonwealth of Virginia and how those funds and how we can spend those funds. I think it'll be very helpful discussion and feedback from the board. Looking at Monday, September the 20th, that would be the final summer work session going into the fall. And I know this board has requested for us to spend some time looking at our public safety operations, specifically on apparatus and fire station planning and our response times, and really taking a deep dive into updating a public safety plan. And so we'll be working through the summer with staff in preparation of that, and hopefully some good board discussion and interaction and feedback and decisions there on September the 20th. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, I know last summer, of course, we had originally planned to update the county strategic plan. And we were not able to do so due to the pandemic and meeting restrictions and so forth. And so we are looking at the last week of August, that's August 30th through September 3rd, as a possible board retreat or board work session, if you will, to perhaps bring in a consultant to work with us and the board on updating its strategic plan. I know the board has mentioned that previously and the need to do so. Not looking for the board to set that specific date today, but if everyone could keep in mind if that would work, that August 30th through September 3rd, it's the week prior to Labor Day. And we'll be following back up with the board on that. So that's a lot of dates, that's a lot of information, but I wanted to mention that to everyone. A couple of other items, Mr. Chairman. I know the governor, of course, has amended the executive order regarding face mask in terms of the wearing of face mask, in terms of when to do so, maybe when not to do so if vaccinations have occurred. And then also the word from the governor's office. Of course, it's pending, but the word is May 28th, the relaxation of mostly all COVID restrictions under the governor's executive order. We will not know necessarily what that will look like until next Friday, but we will be getting that information out to our staff and employees. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I do see Sheriff's Department personnel here with us. I did have a conversation with the sheriff last week regarding the board's concern regarding litter and solid waste enforcement of our collection sites and the need to step up the patrol in that. The sheriff was very receptive of that conversation I had with him and has already begun meeting with his staff in that regard to make sure, as I mentioned, population attraction, we've talked a lot about that. We certainly live in a safe community, but we also want to make sure that we portray that we live in a very clean community and to keep it as clean as we can as well. So I was pleased with my conversations with the sheriff. He has, and I think I see Mr. Sigmund here with us today. I know they've had conversations regarding the allowance, I guess, of the trustees now with the vaccinations and so forth, and really appreciate the work and being able to get trustees back out in the field to assist with the county operations. And Mr. Chairman, and there was several items, but I wanted to share those with the board this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Twillow. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, when the governor relaxes the COVID restrictions, I'd like to request to leave my barrier up between Supervisor Cundiff.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you note that, please?
It'll be in the record.
All right. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, and I thought that at this point, if we get this way, that'll change things around. Instead of having other matters by supervisors, at the end of the day, if you guys will get your list out, and we'll bring those up to do it now so that when we're through this afternoon, we can do that. And with that being said, I would like to start off with something there, but Tim, did you have something?
I do, but. just
All right. In our March meeting, there was a vote in regards to the Burnt Chimney Fire Department new fire truck. And it was brought up in that meeting that for them to start doing preliminary work in purchasing the truck, and that they could do that, but it could not be brought. And that came up in a vote of 4-3, and that it could not be brought back up until July. Now, there has been some new developments that's come up just as recently as yesterday. Director Ferguson went to a meeting yesterday, and he has come back with some information. Now, in order for this to be brought back up because of the 4-3 vote, the four of us that voted against it one of us has to bring it back. And so talk to those, and I will talk to you gentlemen if one of you all want to make a motion, or else just make a statement.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we bring that back up for discussion today.
All right, and we'll get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we can do that by just a voice vote. All in favor by the signifying yes.
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 Anybody no? All right, I've asked staff to come up, and Director Ferguson's going to come forward. Brian Carter's going to be there to help, and so is Mr. Whitlow. I will give you the Reader's Digest version as I understand it. This truck can be purchased at a savings to the county of $5,000 more than what it was done for, but the paperwork has to be signed by the end of this month. No checks have to be written until July, but we still, because we've got about 6 more weeks in the budget, we can't really rely on that carryover money, but we've got to be able to, if we do a contract with somebody, we've got to live up to our contract. So with that being said, Director Ferguson, can you fill us in?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. And I did meet with the membership of the Burnt Chimney Fire Department last night, not only their general membership, but also their board of directors, and also the representatives from Atlantic Emergency Solutions over in Roanoke, who's the local Pierce representative. And the truck that was decided on is pretty much like the one that was purchased by the Snow Creek Volunteer Fire Department back a couple of months ago. It'll be a 2022 Pierce Kenworth T880, a 2,500 gallon tanker. It's pretty similar to the one at Ferrum also, except it's not an elliptical tanker. Basically, it'll be square like the one at Snow Creek. So if we can purchase this truck, it comes in at a cost of $496,638, and there's an additional $2,000 fee because we purchase them off the HGAC contract, which is Houston Galveston area compact that allows us to purchase without going through the procurement process. However, if we can pay for that truck in advance, we'll save $10,364. It's a prepayment discount that we typically do with all our apparatus. But what came to light last night is that if we can purchase the truck, or not purchase, I guess, if we can sign that we're going to purchase by May 30th, there'll be an additional $4,700 savings to that, which will be on top of that $10,300, which brings us to about $15,000 so savings. With that, as long as we obligate to purchase the truck prior to May 30th, we still don't have to pay for it till after July 1st. So with that, I promised the membership I'd bring it back today. Delivery time would be 390 to 420 days out on the truck. So basically looking at a year to about a year and 3 months, which that's typical on fire apparatus. As you know, we ordered the Snow Creek one here about 3 months ago, and it's set for delivery in March of 2022.
Thank
With
you, sir.
that,
Thank you, sir.
any questions?
Mr. Carter, can you enlighten the board on how we can do that if we do it before the end of May? The money. will
Yes, sir,
come
Mr. Chairman. So the discussion last time centered around using some reserve accounts, and we still have those intact. We would be able to use, hold on a minute, Mr. Chairman, if it's your pleasure, I can actually pull that slide back up to show the board all the
from.
reserves.
Please do.
So we want this slide. So these are the list of reserves that were discussed at that March meeting, and all of those reserves are still intact. The dollar amounts, the only difference is the capital reserve, the $2,032,000. We spent the $50,000 out of there for the option on the Moducraft property. So that's $50,000 less, but everything else is the exact same. And originally what we were looking at was to use funds from the discretionary COVID reserve of $200,000 plus another 200 or so thousand from the COVID response reserve. And then we had some money left in the apparatus account to be able to complete the purchase of that truck, if I remember correctly. So those were the options at the time. We, of course, have all of these other reserves. You still have nearly $2 million in just the general capital reserve as well, should we need some supplemental money. Since we're into July, we won't need to make a payment until July anyway. We very well will have a better number on fiscal year-end surplus as well. That could come, I won't say fund balance, but could come from year-end surplus to help resolve any difference in purchasing the fire truck.
We are, from March, where we was about 12 weeks to the end of the budget cycle, now we're at 6.
Right.
Is staff more comfortable or comfortable enough that we could commit to this without potentially hurting or jeopardizing any of our finances?
Yes, sir. I think with the reserves that we have, in addition to the large federal stimulus that will be coming as well, along with what our finances are looking like through the fiscal year, I think we're pretty comfortable if we wanted to make that commitment. That would not jeopardize the county's financial stability.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'd open it up to the board for any questions or comments or any concerns.
Just one comment. Taker 9 did fail pump inspection last week.
Anybody else? All right, I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to make one.
I can't.
Do we have a
Can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I please make it?
Yes.
All right, so you said there was an apparatus account?
There is, I don't know the balance of that account on top, but I would recommend that at this point, if you want to designate the discretionary and COVID response and then use whatever the current apparatus account can't cover from the capital reserve, if that could be your motion, staff will make the numbers work after I have a chance to check with Director Ferguson.
All right, do you have a total, Director Ferguson, that I can put into the motion? Because it was 490 something,
Yeah.
10,000 plus an additional 47. What is that number?
What's it there, sir? 485. Yeah, 485.
So I would recommend then 200,000 from the discretionary COVID, which would bring that down to 0, and then the other 285,000 from the COVID response.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question
Yes, sir.
before we get in.
Yes, sir.
Are we just voting on putting the contract for the savings, or are we voting for the, I thought we'd already approved the truck.
No, sir, the truck's not been approved. We had put it on hold
Okay.
until
thank you.
we figured out our finances. Now that the finances have been figured, this is where we're going to vote on purchasing the truck
Thank you.
and how we're going to do it. Yes, sir.
Is everybody comfortable with what Mr. Carter suggested?
Make your
All right.
motion.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a motion if you're ready.
I believe so.
I'd like to make a motion that we purchase Tanker 9 for $485,000, money to come out of discretionary COVID fund as well as the COVID response fund.
Need a second.
Second.
All right, I'll ask staff, is there anything, additions or anything that we need to do? Does that cover everything?
The only part to clarify is just that we're purchasing it through the cooperative procurement HGAC contract to satisfy state code. But other than that, I think that covers the financial portion.
Do I need to reword that?
So moved.
I need to write that down. What is it?
It's the HGAC cooperative procurement.
HGAC. Hold on, I'm not that smart. HGAC
Cooperative
Cooperative
procurement contract.
Procurement Contract
Yes, sir.
to satisfy that.
Yes.
Just need to add that to
That,
All right.
that'll allow us to utilize that, not have to bid it out ourselves. Yes, sir.
All right, Madam Clerk, you ready again?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we purchase Tanker 9 in the amount of $485,000 to come from the discretionary COVID account and the COVID response account to satisfy the HGAC Cooperative Procurement Contract.
To purchase Tanker 9.
Tanker 9.
And I had a second
Yes, you
by
did.
Supervisor Tatum.
Do a roll call.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Tatum.
Yes.
Supervisor Carter.
Yes.
Supervisor Leland Mitchell.
Yes.
Supervisor Ronald Mitchell.
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes.
That motion passes, and Supervisor Smith and Cundiff were absent for that vote.
Thank y'all.
Okay, I'll save my list till the end. You go ahead,
Okay.
Tim.
We were able to pass the budget last month, and during this year's budget cycle, one topic kept coming up numerous times, and it's a grave concern to all of us, and that's the item of pay compression amongst our county employees. I would like to see Mr. Whitlow, Mr. Carter, look into forming a committee, and you may already have. If you have, great. But I'd like to see a committee formed, pulling from department heads, different departments throughout the county, Sheriff's Department, Public Safety, Parks and Rec, Landfill. I want input from every department that we can get. And start brainstorming, come up with some ideas, some plans, to put a plan together to attack this compression. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is because, believe it or not, we just finished the budget last month. It's going to be back here before we know it, a new budget year. So we need to start working on this now. I'm asking you to gather info, put together a plan. It needs to be, and I'm not looking for a one-time fix-all solution. I'm looking for a solution that works. And it needs to be solid. It needs to be doable. In other words, it needs to be affordable. But we need to come up with a plan to address this issue of compression. I think this is the only fair way to treat our employees. This is an issue that kills morale, and this is, in my opinion, is the best way. Put our heads together, form this committee, reach out, bring in ideas, and then you all present your ideas to us, and that helps us it makes us look better. And we need all the help we can get on that end. But I'm just asking that y'all form a committee to address the compression issues with our pay with our county employees. And that's all I had.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's, for myself, for what he just said, I think it works well and will fall in with the pay study that the county's getting ready to do. That will
Mr.
fall
Chairman.
in with that.
I would like to say that I think it's a idea that we need to look at, going through the last compression that this board did. There's a lot of things in there that needs to be addressed and looked at to get this to the best position we can for the employees. And I think, Chris, you remember the last one. And it's a lot to it, and you just can't go out and say, we're going to do it today.
Right.
So I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one thing since Major Sigmund's here. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for all the hard work they've done cleaning up the trash in the county. I've been getting a lot of good comments about that and very appreciative, and I'm glad you're stepping up to address some of the issues up on Grassy Hill at the dumpster site too. So thank you.
As a carry on from that, this was the first week in 3 that my phone hadn't rang off in emails for NAFRO. So thanks for that too. I mean, seriously, the last 3 weeks on Monday, I've just said, here it comes. I know it's coming. It's been ever since the dumpsters were closed on 220. But yeah, it's already seeing results from what's going on from you guys. Is there anyone else got any, Ronnie?
Yes, sir. I only have a couple, if you guys can believe that, but I do only have a couple. Last meeting, we mentioned talking to AEP about looking at possible dredging in the upper Blackwater. Do we have an update on that?
Do not have an update today per se unless staff, Mr. Ronnie Mitchell, will get you an update. I do understand in speaking with Don Smith, of course, from the skimmer, I know the skimmer collects a lot of trash and debris and so forth, and a lot of that's brought to the landfill. We're seeing a lot of that from VDOT and Appalachian Power, but your concern more in terms, I assume, regarding the low water levels from the lake and the siltation. I remember, of course, Ms. Smith's not here today, but Ms. Smith, of course, serves on TLAC and the Smith Mountain Lake Association, and I remember Lori noting that she was going to look into that directly, but I'll follow back up from staff and from Lori's perspective too, and provide you that update.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The next one's for Mr. Sandy. Do you have any further comments to the Corps of Engineers regarding MVP water crossings or boring operations? The deadline's May 28th.
Yeah, so I'll go back to your first question first, if you don't mind, because that is something that we've looked at before with AEP, the Corps of Engineers, DEQ, about the dredging situation. And I think the bottom line is, yes, it could be done. It's going to be a continuous problem, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And so who's going to pay for it? AEP has said that they're not willing to do continuous dredging. They did a small dredging project up at the Hardy Road Bridge back kind of in conjunction when the bridge was replaced. But a lot of that has actually already silted back in a lot of places. And so I think there's been a resistance to kind of doing that. What we've approached TLAC about in the past, as Chris kind of noted, was for navigational safety of particularly around Blackwater 50 and 49 in that area, about trying to get them to do something to improve navigation through there. But as far as dredging out coves and individual areas, it's an uphill battle, I think, and unless somebody's got quite a bit of money to kind of initiate that process, nobody seems to be wanting to take the kind of the lead on that. So we can continue to have those discussions.
Please.
It's a tough one because there's a lot of issues too. Once you dredge it and take it out, you've got all kinds of environmental regulations as well about where you can dispose of it. So there's some folks up around Blackwater 50 that had actually done quite a bit of work and actually had a dredging contractor come and take a look at that area. And we had conversations with the Corps of Engineers, DEQ, and AEP at that time. It just, I think, mostly comes down to money and permitting and, trying to find what that solution is. So we'll keep looking at it, and as Chris said, we can kind of report back where things are now. I guess the short answer is AEP does not have a program in place to kind of, do routine dredging or maintenance dredging. And so maybe that's something that they can look at as well in part of their program moving forward. To the second point, I think that is something that we wanted the board to have a discussion about is there is an opportunity for us to file additional comments with the Corps of Engineers relative to permitting for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And May 28th, I believe, is the deadline. And so wanted to see if that was the board's consensus for staff to put together some comments in that regard by that deadline on the 28th, which I guess a week from Friday.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's incumbent on us as elected representatives to protect the waterways of the county. And a lot of this sedimentation that Mr. Mitchell has brought up is a direct result of this 30-mile wide swath that MVP has cut across our county. So for myself, I think we definitely need to send some comments.
My comment, I grow grass for a living. I'm pretty good at it. They're not. These pipelines are still not full of vegetation. And the upper Blackwater in the last 3 years is just getting awful. That's my comment. Grow better grass. Let's get the slope stabilized. I'm tired of it.
As far as my comment for you writing the letter is I want it written in red in large print. I haven't changed my mind about this pipeline from day one. I hate it. I think they've left a terrible scar on our county that will never be done away with. I think they have really infringed on the county and on the people. There's people out there that they've come in and tore up their farms. That's third and fourth generation farms and still haven't been compensated and will never be compensated. And I am just, you guys don't know how glad I am that there's more support from other board members now than what it was in the beginning. I despise the pipeline. I think it's done nothing but hurt our county, and it's not going to bring it into the 21st century. It set this county back, in my opinion. And yes, I want to see that. And again, I want it written in red with large print. That's how I do. So that's my vote. I guess you got your answer there.
We have a consensus, we can put comments together. Yeah, and I think to Mr. Mitchell's comment about the lack of grass and so forth, that's something that I can direct to DEQ as well, because they're the ones responsible for that erosion and sediment control and stabilization of that, so I can
Drive around, it's bigger.
I can address that with them as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment, growing grass is pretty easy. Mr. Mitchell, you agree with, but it's what you sow. When you go out here and put out a little heading wheat style, that's not going to cover the ground. What they need to do is go in there and sow fescue, something that will stick to the ground and stay, and they're not doing it. And it's puzzling to me that they can't see what they need to sow. It's simple. They can sow it with a helicopter. But they need to to look at what they're planning.
I'll definitely put some comments together to send to DEQ as well.
Thank you, thank you. And I have a couple more comments on my supervisor comments. The last several board meetings we had, there's been a lot of talk about assistance and helping and doing in fire and EMS. And I have continually asked and have supported, and I'm asking for the board's support to give staff and Director Ferguson authority or whatever to start looking for some property and potential growth for fire and EMS in the Hardy area, and I'm asking for your support.
Absolutely.
Got it.
So I think, thank you guys a whole lot. I appreciate that. And I think with that, Director Ferguson, you can move forward. I know that there was a plan done, and I'll ask you to remember that eventually where they would fall into place with the entire county, because it couldn't go everywhere, but keep that in mind as well. And then at your leisure, if you will let me know, and I'll try to make time to go around and go with you. And thank y'all again. Thank y'all for that. And then there's one other thing. I know that this has been heavy on my mind, and some of you older folks that's been on the board for a while know that. I was one of those that was instrumental in getting the county fair started. In light of what's been going on, with this COVID mess and the way our country is, I understand the hesitancy in the fair and why it has been put on hold. But I certainly would like to see, doesn't necessarily have to be a midway, but we're agricultural county. And I know that the agricultural part is there, that the farmers are out there raising their cattle, their sheep, their goats, their hogs, they planting crops. And I would at least like to see the county bring back part of the county fair that could be applicable to, we may not be able to get to midway because of the time frame and because of what's going on with this, still with this COVID stuff, and we may be even too late to book a midway. But I certainly would like to see the county reinstate the fair program and get that back going.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow, that's easy.
All we gotta do is call and ask,
I need
right?
to have 2 or 3 other things for today. It's going good. It's going too good.
We're with you 100% on that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can we direct staff to just call Midway and see if they can give us a date? And if we can book it, let's book it and let's do it.
I think we can. I think, but it's some particulars that needs to be worked out, and we are giving staff that to do that. See what can and cannot be done at this point. I mean, I don't know. We may even be too late to do anything, but certainly let them know what our desires are. I mean, even if we have to do a real dummy-down version of it from what the fantastic fairs we've had, but if we just have to keep it within the county, with the county farmers and stuff, I think it seems like everybody's hip to that, to do the best you can, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, understand the renewed optimism and so forth for the fair. I will tell you in terms of budgeting, looking at next year's budget, for the fair, not anticipating. Of course, when we looked, I think we had to, I'm looking at Mr. Burnett, I think we needed to book the midway back in January, and of course, we did not know in January that things were looking more optimistic now, and so a lot of the events, the fair, including the Pig River Ramble and some of the other large county events, were canceled, or I should say postponed, because I think it has been the intent to certainly next year have the fair to come back. But I also understand the board's desire to maybe look at this perhaps in a smaller scale, perhaps if it's not a full-fledged fair, maybe some event of something, agricultural showcase, something. A lot of things are going through my mind. I'm looking at staff. It may be if we could bring, maybe we'll put our collective minds together and see what possibilities are, not making any promises, but to maybe bring back and report back to the board at the June meeting as to what's possible, and also coming up in communications with you all. But we'll certainly look into what we will do, certainly whatever the desire of the board is, in the parameters of the timeline, the budget, and really the staff and resources that we may have to get it done. But we can bring back at least a report and hear the desire of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recommend Ms. Haynes with extension as a good starting place.
Yeah,
Does a great job.
yes.
Sure does.
Anyone else? All right, now we'll take a break, but we need to read about going into closed session when we get through, and we'll take a break and then we'll reconvene inside closed session.
Are we taking
Vice,
other things from supervisors?
yes, sir, you got.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's,
I just want to thank the board for appropriating for Snow Creek Rescue Squad last month. I was unable to be here, and Mr. Carter, I think you made a good statement of being a Band-Aid, but Band-Aid is good. It'll work for the time being, but I would like to ask that the board keep looking at providing services, not just to Snow Creek, but other places in the county that rescue squads are not able to function. And I think it's up to the county, up to this board to provide funds to carry this this through, because, and I know the hiring is a situation we have to deal with, but I would like to see us go forward with trying to support some of these rescue squads that are having a problem of their own, because I think it's our duty to provide services to some of these localities that are not getting it. So I would just thank you for what we received last month, but I think we need to continue on looking for solutions for the rescue squads.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Supervisors enter into a closed meeting in accordance to 2.2-3711A1, personal discussion of appointments to county boards, commissions, and et cetera, discussion of the acquisition of real property or the disposition of real property, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry, discussion of the terms of a public contract where the discussion in public would adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the county in regards to a potential boundary adjustment with a neighboring county and in regards to the existing lease of county property of the Code of Virginia as amended.
Thank you, sir. We need a second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we do a roll call vote, please.
Sir. Supervisor Carter.
Yes.
Supervisor Leland Mitchell.
Yes.
Supervisor Ronald Mitchell.
Yes.
Supervisor Tatum.
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes. We will reconvene in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in the room in the conference.